shoulders. You just nailed it.
Keeper. Like I said, I mean, good size gut on them. So, all right, let's eye it a little bit. Look at it. Oh. So, guys, Snyder came in here. I guess Wednesday. Yeah, it's Friday. Came in here Wednesday, found some schooling action back here in Minton, or towards the mouth of Minton Holler. And we've seen some bait this morning. We've seen some life on the graph, but nothing up schooling like what he saw. We hooked into a decent one on the fly that came off. Hooked into one, two now on the Kitech. But still not the same quality. They're down there, but just the action's different this morning. So we're going to kind of keep looking around here, see if things have moved around, see if we need to change up our presentation from a Kitech maybe to a Demiki. Maybe even go to a tight line, maybe a floating fly a little bit later today. We keep looking around at some different things.
Where's he going? Yeah, they are. Lay down over here.
Alright guys, so we just caught two there, kind of doubled up, as you saw, coming down into Minton Holler. Really just do nothing, little tiny subtle points that you can see on the graph. They're just kind of sitting on those edges, still in about 30 to 40 foot of water. But they really want that Kitech on the bottom right now, really just doing nothing. Either just killing it or just on the fall they're eating it. But so far that's the bait's deeper, the bass are holding deeper than they were the other day for Snyder. So we'll check a few more places, see if that holds up for tomorrow.
that or the mud. Good job.
All right, guys, so wrapping up the day. We kind of shut down about 3 o'clock, which is what time the tournament will start or stop. Did some retime, just make sure everything's ready to go for tomorrow. All in all, reassured that our starting spot's going to be back there in Mitten Holler. Might have found another secondary besides Fish Dam, but we'll see. That area of the lake down towards Jacob Creek was really congested. There's a lot of people fishing down that way, so it might be a little risk to run that far. Maybe save it for the very end of the day, since that bite didn't come until 1:30 or so, almost 2. So the plan for right now is going to be Kitech, Demiki, starting out in the morning, mainly that Kitech, looking for those fish in Mitten Holler, looking on those little just subtle turns where we found them. Hopefully there'll be a little more schooling action tomorrow, but we'll see. That might be hard to locate with all the wind that we're going to have. We should have some rain, so the bite technically should be a little bit better tomorrow. But that's going to be the plan. Start out in Mitten Holler with that. I've got a silver buddy tied on for later on in the day, or if I need something to change up to, and then do a little bit of top lining there intermittently as we're kind of maybe jumping back and forth between those schools of fish. So that'll be the plan, but otherwise, guys, we'll see you in the morning. All right, guys, so fast forward here to the actual tournament day. So we made our way back in, and when we shut down first thing, those fish were not out towards the mouth of this pocket like they were the day before with me and Dad out there practicing. And that warmer night, I think, kind of pushed them back. But what you're going to see me doing here is we're kind of hanging towards the left of the pocket. You're going to notice that I had kind of adjusted the trolling motor head. We're looking for those fish on the live scope. And once we see them out there, usually we try to keep them as far away from us as we could, somewhere in that 100-foot range. And we'd kind of line up on them, make our cast, count that Kitech down to being just above them. And they were really setting up in that 15 to 20 foot of water. So they weren't as deep as what Dad and I had seen, where they were kind of relying on the bottom, sitting on the bottom. Here they were more up in that water column, moving around quite a bit. So we were kind of sniping them with that live scope. But the key with that Kitech was we could stay way off of them. We could make a really long cast with that 3/8 ounce head. I was getting bit on the chartreuse electric blue, and later on Snyder would get a couple bites there on more of a pearl white or a white color Kitech, but it was in that 2.8. So the main key here was we were kind of staying off of them, hanging to that left, because they were really moving through the middle portion of that pocket. Now, as we move further and further back, we were still seeing some schooling action, some action on top. Again, it wasn't fast and furious. We're not talking about stuff you see earlier in the fall with things blowing up everywhere. But the big key was staying on that trolling motor and keeping it panning back and forth and trying to spot them as far out there as you could. Because, again, the closer you got to them, the more finicky they were, the little bit more spooked they were. But with each one of these here at the start with the Kitech, we are seeing those fish out there moving around on the graph. And like I said, the key was to keep it above them. So once you make your cast, know how quickly that Kitech's falling. The rate of fall is important, so count it down to where it's still going to stay above those fish.
and allow you that opportunity to get them feeding up, because again, they're gonna want to feed up. They're gonna typically stay below that bait. But as we pushed further back, we found some trees, or we knew of some trees, and when we moved over them, we saw some fish in them. So Snyder was switching up between the fly and the Kitech, and I started dropping a Demiki on them. Now, we didn't catch any keepers here or anything that helped with the Demiki as we got over top of them. It was still that mainstay of throwing that Kitech, slinging it around, and focusing in on those fish that were up in the water column and moving. Now, later on here in the video, you're going to see that once this morning kind of dies down and these fish that were up a little bit higher in the water column settle down, the bait settles down deeper, we're going to make some changes. We're going to move over to fish dam. We're going to throw the fly around, and Snyder really starts to get on fire with that fly. You're going to catch several in fish dam. One maybe that helps us cull up a little bit, because we had a limit before we left here on that Kitech. And once we left and went and caught a few on the fly, we came back later on in the day to try to see if maybe fish had reactivated. That afternoon bite had gotten better, but things didn't really pick up for us at all. So then we make our move down the lake closer to takeoff to finish up the day, and that's where we actually hook into the big girl, the big bass, the 530 smallmouth, Snyder's PB. And it was important to make that change, because this little area here just really kind of died off for us. But that fly bite really picked up there later on in the afternoon. So it was a really good switch up. It was a good kind of 1-2 punch to have these fish here in the morning. The only adjustment like I said, we had to make was that those fish had moved further back into the pocket. And I really think that's because of that warmer night that we had kind of allowed that bait to push back further. So the bait was up. They were feeding that morning. This all kind of died around 10:30, and then, like I said, we ran to fish dam. He really picked up the fly and did some damage with that, and then we came back to check these fish. Nothing going on really, and then finally made our way back down the lake, or technically back up the lake towards takeoff there at 421, and made some work with the fly really quick before we checked in. All in all, though, guys, a good day. Again, 1694 was our weight. We had big fish with a 530 smallmouth, so very happy with it. But again, that part of just kind of settling in. When you find these schools this time of year, you got to really settle in. You really got to work those fish and make sure that you don't run yourself all over the place, because these fish are going to be active for windows during this time, and you've got to maximize that bite window. And I feel like that's what we did a good job of, was maximizing that Kitech bite in the morning and then that fly bite there in the afternoon.
That's what they be eating. we're making the right call today, Snyder.